Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to the Buffett and Beyond Research Saturday ETF report for February 3rd, 2024. And remember, if you want to live on the beach like Jimmy Buffett once did, you've got to learn how to invest even better than Warren Buffett does now. And this week, well, we're looking over the returns of hedged and unhedged year-to-date performances and over the past 13 months. And here we are with the chart. And last week we were worried about this little topping formation coming up in here. And well, folks, it did fall down to this 20-day moving average, and now it bounced back up again. But we'll see what's going to happen next week. And let's look at some of these returns in our favorite ETFs. And this is the technology ETF, and that's XLK. And this is what it's done year to date. So a little bit more than a month, because this is February 2nd of when I'm getting these numbers. And the last day of the year for 23 was on the 30th. Actually, it was the 29th, was that Friday. So anyway, what we're looking at, the returns of the XLK, 5% for the year, and the S&P 500 up 3.8% for the year. Now, our 6 top stocks are returning 9.3% for the year. Folks, this is 1 month already. And if you were hedged, fully hedged all the time, you would have gotten 4.2%, still ahead of the S&P 500. And our top stocks that we picked out of the ETF, 9.3%, versus the ETF itself, up 5%. So our top stocks just about always outperform the ETF itself, and just about always outperform the S&P 500. Now let's look over the past 13 months. So you notice this is the end of 2022 and the end of yesterday, as I'm recording this, on February 2nd. So this is 13 months in here. Now the returns of the XLK over 13 months, 62.5%. Return of the S&P, 29%. Now our top 6 stocks returned 89%. So our top stocks outperformed the XLK technology ETF itself and way outperformed almost 3 times the S&P 500. If you were totally hedged all the time, and what does hedged means? Hedged means that since our top stocks just about always outperform the S&P 500, that we can go short the ETF and go long our top stocks and just leave it like that for the rest of the year. We would be up 27%, almost as high as the S&P 500 is. Now, what does it mean to be hedged? Because in 2022, the NASDAQ was down 34%. Our top stocks in the NASDAQ and the QQQs, the NASDAQ 100 top stocks, would have lost, if it was hedged, just 7.8%. So would you have rather lost 34% or 7.8%? And don't forget, during that time, the S&P was down 19.6%. So if you're hedged all the time, yeah, you're going to give up upside, but boy, oh boy, you're going to limit your downside also. All right, so you see what we're doing here. 1 month returns, 13-month returns. Let's go to our semiconductors. And the semiconductor ETF is doing not too good this year, with the S&P up 3.8%. Our top stocks up 4.4%, while the ETF itself is down 6.7%. The difference is 11.1%. So if we were hedged in the semiconductor ETF for this past month, we would be up 11.1%. Now, over the past 13 months, how did the semiconductor ETF do? 25%. In fact, the S&P 500 is outperforming the semiconductor ETF. But look at the long stocks. Look at the top stocks that we have in there. Another 6 stocks in the semiconductor also, up 109%. And if you were hedged, you're up 83%. Now, folks, believe me, last year was an abnormal year because 2022 was a dismal year, and 2023 was the market coming back nicely. All right, let's look at the NASDAQ 100, and these are the top stocks we have Actually, we have about 12 stocks in here, but I had to fit it all on the screen. So right now, the QQQs are up 4.7%, S&P up 3.8%, but our top 12 stocks in the QQQs up 9.3%. And if you're hedged, you're outperforming the S&P 500 and you're hedged. So that's so important, limiting that downside. Okay, over 13 months, what did we do? Well, the QQQs were up 61%, S&P up 29%. And when you look at the top 12 stocks, what did they do? Up 124%. If you were hedged, you're up 62.9%. So if you're in these hot stocks, being hedged all the time is not a bad idea. Now, let's look at our triple ETF. Our triple ETF is not really an ETF, but what we did is we have 18 stocks. We have stocks from the semiconductor, we have stocks from the technology ETF, and we have stocks from the QQQs, which are the NASDAQ 100. So we have a total of 18 stocks. You just don't see them all here. And for the year, the QQQs are up 4.7%. Our top stocks are up 8.3%. Not bad. If you're hedged, you're up 3.6%, almost as much as the S&P, with about less than 1/4 the volatility of the S&P 500. Over 13 months, QQQs were up 53%. So we use the QQQs as our benchmark for our own homemade ETF, which again includes technology, semiconductor, and the QQQs. So our stocks over this time period up 85.6%. If we were always hedged throughout the entire 13 months, we'd be up 31.8%. Again, beating the S&P 500. Our top stocks, again, beating the benchmark, in this case, the QQQs. Now let's look at the transports, which did pretty good last year, but with the S&P up 24.2%. Well, let's go over here to the 1 month. 1 month, the transport is doing nothing this year. S&P, again, up 3.8%. But our top stocks are at least up 3.1%. And if you're long and short, so in other words, you're hedged, you're up 2.3%. Over the past 13 months, our top stocks are up 46.5%, doubling the transport ETF. So we've done very well. And the hedged, if you were hedged all the time on these stocks that we have in the transport, you're actually outperforming the ETF itself while being hedged. And folks, that is really, really good being hedged. It's insurance. You have insurance. Now, what did healthcare do? Everybody says healthcare, healthcare, healthcare. Folks, I don't care for healthcare that much, and I'm going to show you a chart in a few minutes here. But healthcare this year is up 4.2%, a little bit more than the S&P 500. Our top stocks up 1.4%. If you're long and short, you're actually down 2.7%. But if you take the last 13 months, the healthcare was up only 4.6%, folks. It wasn't up very much at all. And our top stocks were up 14%. If you were hedged, you're up 9.7%. So you can see that the healthcare is not all it is cracked up to be. And I'll show you that chart. Okay, home builders. Last year, right now, they're doing nothing, right? Absolutely nothing. They are down 0.1%, and our top stocks are up 0.4%. So let's call it a do-nothing month for the home builders. Last year, the home builders were up 58%, and our top stocks were up 57.5%. This is one of the rare cases where our top stocks did not outperform the ETF itself. So this is one of those rare instances. But hey, being up almost double the S&P 500 is not bad, is it? Whether you're in the top stocks or whether you're in the ETF itself. So let me show you this chart here. Black line is the S&P 500. This is over 5 years. Now we have some underperforming Now, these are the ETFs underperforming the S&P 500. Here's transportation in here. It has underperformed the S&P 500. And this gray line in here, this gray line is the healthcare. So you can see that over 5 years, healthcare has really lagged the S&P 500. What are these ETFs that are outperforming? Well, home builders is this yellow in here. QQQs right here, this orange, well, not orange, but it's almost a pinkish type of line. And then these two ETFs up here that are performing almost the same. One is the XSD, the other one is the XLK. So in other words, technology and semiconductors are almost 400% better than the S&P 500. Now, what about our ETFs or our top stocks over that time? We're almost doubling, folks, all the way up here. If you're hedged, you're all the way right around in here, but being hedged. So being hedged is not a bad place to be. But if you're long those stocks, yes, you get all the upside, but you also get the downside too. So you could have been down as much as 30% in 2022. If you were hedged, you were only down 7.8%. But the upside is fantastic. But the upside being hedged is fantastic. And not being hedged is way up here. So it depends on where you are. And you could be hedged sometimes, or you could be hedged 50%. So a lot of people like to be hedged 50%. And therefore, that you capture a little bit more of the upside, but you're exposed a little bit more to the downside. So it's all up to you, folks. Good ETFs this first month. We're doing well. Last year we did absolutely fantastic. And over 13 months, we're doing fantastic. So, folks, just remember, we had a pretty good week this week. The market went down, then started bouncing back. And remember, just go out, clear your head, and if you want to walk on this beach like Jimmy Buffett once did and watch the sunrise, yep, that's that sun just poking right through there. This is daybreak. If you want to walk on the beach like Jimmy Buffett once did, you've got to learn how to invest even better than Warren Buffett does now. And folks, we don't like to trade. We like to hold on to good companies for the longer term, because over the 22 years that we've had portfolios, we have almost tripled the returns of the S&P 500. So that's on a compounded basis. So, folks, buying and holding the good stocks, and you hold the good stock until it's not good anymore or until it's replaced by a better stock. Folks, go out, enjoy yourself, be with your loved ones over the weekend, because the market will be open again next week for sure. See you then. Stay safe.